very honored to be here, my alma mater. And I do have this sense that I'm with some of the future leaders of this community. And I'm hoping to insert a few subversive ideas. First of all, this is where I learned some of my first lessons on leadership. And I want to convince you or persuade you today that the structure of city governments in Canada are beautifully set up to stifle leadership and to essentially give us cities that are much less ideal than they could be. My first experience with thinking about these problems in a deep way came when I tried to learn to fly ultralight airplanes. Now, 30 years ago, there was practically no regulation on ultralight airplanes. Your first flight could be your solo flight, and I decided on my first solo flight that I would have my skilled co-pilot cross his arms and his legs, and I was going to take off. I was going to fly this out. And I took off very nicely. Everything was going very well. The plane was rising, all until I decided to take a look down to see, how I was doing. And I was shocked at how close the ground was. So I decided I was going to pull up on this stick. And when I pulled up, the nose started to go down. I started to panic. I pulled up a bit more, and the nose went down even more. And suddenly, thankfully, my co-pilot grabbed the stick and jammed it to the ground. Straight forward, I thought he was a suicidal maniac. He was going to kill us. Got enough wind speed, and he took off. And I didn't quite grasp that you needed wind speed past your wings in order to control the plane. So while every cell of my body was saying, pull up, the right thing to do was push down. And for about 3 days, I don't know, Christian, I know you had a near-death experience, but when you feel you've just had a near-death experience, you kind of float through the world for a few days. And I floated around and I thought, how could I be so wrong? How could the intuitive idea be completely wrong? And I wondered about that with government. When all the citizens are saying, pull up, and the right answer is to push down. Now, there is in democracy this sort of assumption that just figure out what the people want to do, and then do it. There is a saying among politicians, show me where the people are going, that I may lead them there. Well, sometimes it's not the right thing to do. And I want to try to convince you of a few issues that I felt were what I call stick-down issues. And some of these include density, drugs, and democracy. I'm going to just run through them, and I hope I can show you how these could be these counterintuitive, non-instinctual issues. So let's talk about drugs. I set up an initiative called Project Civil City, and the essence of this idea was police are not the answer to our social problems. And, people think about drug addiction as a moral issue. Many people say it's a moral issue. There's a whole bunch of people that think it's a medical issue. I think both of them are wrong. They are neither moral nor medical. You've got to go one step beyond. It's what I call a disability issue or a management issue. When you look at the neurology of addiction, all addiction happens in one part of the brain, the nucleus accumbens. And if you scan it in the midst of an addiction, it will light up like a Christmas tree. No matter if it's a drug addiction or gambling addiction, behavioral addiction, same place in the brain. And this place in the brain also has projections into the area of morality in the brain. So people in the throes of addiction cannot actually process morality. what happens when you have this? If you look at most products, you've got these nice, gentle supply and demand curves. This is an average product of any kind or service. That's drug addiction. That's when people are drug addicted. The demand curve is like standing on its head. No matter how high the price, an addicted person will pay it. So, if you throw police at it, if you throw prisons at it, if you throw social exclusion at it, what happens is it drives up the price of the drugs. And what it does is create a windfall for criminals. Dumb. 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 This is what we do. This is our official policy on drugs. Push down, don't pull up. Density, another favorite topic. These are some of the issues that I wanted to deal with because I felt that if you really are just going to do what the people want, what you need is a coordinator. You don't need a leader. A leader is someone who sees the future, sees the rocks, the shoals, and steers away. You know that the word governance comes from the Latin word to steer. That's what governance is about. So, there are three things that I believe that density does for us. Better for the environment, better for the economy. And I've heard an Asian government official say, this is very interesting, Asian and European cities are very dense, and they will withstand energy price rises. North American cities in an energy price rise will be economic basket cases. This is a serious issue for us. We are creating dinosaurs, essentially. We're going to create a very serious problem for ourselves unless we can densify. Social issues, cultural dynamism. When you have very dense communities, you get great cultural opportunities and more, definitely more intermingled social issues. Let me talk about the density and GHGs. If you look at the red part of this slide, anybody who lives in the downtown creates 1.5 tons of greenhouse gas per person. Those in the next area, the orange area, create twice as much, 3 tons per person. In the gray area out here in the leafy suburbs near Langara, we're at 6 tons, 4 times as much. You get past the river, it's 8 tons. There are suburbs of Canada where you're almost 20 tons per person, average. This is an example of the benefits of density. Here you have 3 different scenarios. One is a high-rise, one is a mid-rise, and one is single detached homes. You will take 3 times as much land in a mid-rise, 35 times much land in single detached homes. And that's at 33-foot lots. It can go up to 50 times as much land just to accommodate. We know that the 2 big issues of the environment are greenhouse gas, climate change, and habitat. On these 2 issues alone, clearly, density is a good thing. Density is not for everybody. Not everybody wants to live that way, but there is a big demand. And I can tell you, there was a condo that sold for $20 million just down the street. Lots of people think high density gives high quality of life, and there's a big demand, and we're not filling it. In fact, our regional growth strategy calls for almost all of the growth to be outside in areas of 6 tons per person or more. This is a slide about transit use and density. Transit use really rises as you start to densify. But at a certain point, transit use actually goes down. This was very confusing for people. What happens? Actually, what goes on in very high dense neighborhoods? Walking becomes the preferred way of transportation. My final issue is on democracy. And I started an initiative called Roles, Relationships, and Responsibilities. And I should say all my 3 initiatives failed. So I'm not really a good one to give you a speech on leadership. I think I got the theory, but obviously lacked on the implementation. But I don't believe, and some people, you'll even hear environmentalists say, democracy is the problem. And that to me is quite worrying. I do not believe democracy is a problem. I believe that an unsophisticated democracy is the problem. We need to be more intelligent about the way we design our democracy. And if you look back on the great thinkers of constitutions and government, Aristotle said there are three functions of government, and they need to be separated. They're dependent but separate. And Montesquieu gave us the most modern formulation of this. He said there's executive, there's legislative, and there's judicial. And in cities of Canada, we're completely dominated by the legislative. The City Council runs everything. The City Council is meant to be a legislative body to create the visions, the values, and to regulate the relationships. We need an executive that is strong and can lead, and we need a judicial function. So the way that would play out in Vancouver is right now the mayor, I hope you're all voting, is actually the chair of the council, the chair of the legislature. In the great cities of the world like New York, Chicago, London, the mayor is the head of the executive. And this is completely foreign to Canadian cities. Canadian cities, the mayor is simply chair of the legislature. Another thing that happens in our cities, which I think profoundly hold us back, is we don't have a judicial function, either a jury or a kind of judicial function that would help implement the goals and the ideals of the council. And this is especially clear in public hearings, when they actually render judgment and decision on an individual development. And what happens now is basically citizens come forward who usually are highly invested in that area and basically bully or threaten the council with losing the next election unless they do what they want, which is usually as little as possible, as little change as possible. And this is one of the key reasons why we have sprawling cities throughout North America. Cities die the death of 1,000 cuts, decision after decision, public hearing after public hearing. You would change the world if you could have a judicial function that would take the goals and values of the council and make decisions based on that. There have been 3 waves of urban reform in Canada, and I take a little bit of license, but in general you can focus them around the 1860s, when the country was formed and there was incorporation of cities, the 1910s, which really came out of the US and an idea of how to get corruption out of cities, and then the 1960s, which was this great counterculture revolution. Whoa, 1860s, 1910s, 1960s, 2010s. I think we're ready for a revolution. To the barricades, everyone. We have an opportunity, and I believe that the biggest losers right now out of the last revolution is young people. The price of housing is just one indication of what has happened by sprawling. Suppress supply, push the demand, push the supply out. Suppress supply, of course, any economists will tell you that the price will go up. And that's what's happened since the 60s, when there was a new way of doing business at the cities, and basically it was about suppressing supply, and it really created suburbia. I believe that we have an opportunity to change this. We need to really take advantage of the thoughts and the ideas, really think about government. I think we need to understand that cities and governments need to change, that we need to become more sophisticated, and we need to recognize that not all decisions are just what everybody wants to do. we need to realize that there are really important decisions that are affecting all of us, that we could, by changing the structure of city government, make leadership much more possible in this city. Thank you very much.